Hello there guys, and welcome back to the channel. Right, now Incursions as a game mode in past never really has given us an option, a choice, and virtually no other game mode does. We can't choose whether we want to play duo or, I don't know, 10 people group in Battlegrounds. We can't choose story content to be done together with somebody else, and every single game mode up until now has had, strict number of participants. All Alliance were battle groups 10 people, Alliance Quest battle groups 10 people, everything else is solo. Incursions was 2 people. Now you will have the option of doing Incursions solo, and there are obviously multiple ways how to approach this subject. Which one of these options is the better one? And in today's video, I will not largely focus on the social aspects, the camaraderie, or the inconvenience of arranging logistics or finding a suitable partner or any of that stuff. But we're going to be focusing more on whether the game mode is technically easier or harder playing solo or with a partner that, for the sake of arguments, is equally capable as you are. Because obviously the choice of the partner also drastically depends whether you're better off. For instance, if you are having a tiny account and if you're not particularly skilled, obviously it will be to your benefit if you get to pair up with somebody that's, much more experienced, skilled, with better account, and can basically carry you. That much would be obvious. But assuming that your partner is equally capable of the game, is it easier to play Incursions solo or together with somebody? And I actually gave this quite a bit of thought, which is why I'm making this video. Before I go into my points, my personal point of view and my arguments as to why, I want you guys to stop watching this video and drop a comment. What will you do, and what do you think is going to be better for you, and why? And again, I fully expect there to be a lot of kind of like social elements to it, or I have a good friend, I always do it, or I can never find anybody to do it with, and stuff like that. But for the rest of the video, I want to break down the differences that we are going to have based on in the actual time we play Incursions. And obviously the first thing that immediately springs is pointed out here, solo mode will have 2 parts, and duo mode has 4 parts, as it always has. In the first instance, it kind of seems inconsequential, but in reality, there is quite an important distinction, because you as a player still have to only do one of those 4 parts, and technically you have 4 choices. Especially if you're playing with somebody of equal skill who's able to adjust, and pick a path that's most suited. Obviously, yes, you need to make sure that you both go on either one of the sides, but at the very least, that would still kind of give you more option and more flexibility, whether you're going to go to the right side, whether you're going to go to the left side, and which one of the 4 paths you ultimately want to end up going to, assuming that your partner is capable of doing one of the other parts. And the fact that you will have less choice as a single player will inevitably mean that you will run into more instances where you get extremely unfavorable lanes, path, or opponents to your roster, to the 3 champions that you have brought in. So that's point number 1. The smaller number of paths mean less choice, less variety, and because of that, you might end up having to take harder fights and harder paths for it. Then there is a second argument, and I'm saving the best for last, but my second argument is also that if you play together with somebody else, then you guys can bring in 6 champions total, which means that you should have much easier time to adjust to each side, to whatever path each one of you need to take, or more specifically the boss fights. You see, if you're trying to push Incursions in solo mode by yourself, it is very likely that, for instance, that none of your 3 champions are particularly suited and that you might need to swap in a new champion at the beginning of Incursions. And statistically speaking, it is much less likely, half as likely, that the same situation where one of you have to swap in a champion for the boss, for instance, would occur is if there's 2 of you, because you guys have double the amount of champions, and ideally if you bring in different champions especially, then one of you are much more likely to have an answer for a specific boss or a problem fight than if you are there just by yourself. So having access to 6 champions in every single room of Incursions automatically again gives you more flexibility. And the last point, and perhaps most important point, is purely mathematical. You see, if you're playing Incursions in solo mode, you will have to do 3 fights every single room. And, that much seems obvious. But if you play together with a friend, you have to do on average 2.5 fights every room, or 5 fights every 2 rooms, because each of you do the 2 fights and then the boss fight is shared again, and you guys can decide which one of you is taking the boss. And whilst, you can't necessarily measure half a fight, but in a course of 10 rooms, in one scenario you need to do 30 fights, in another scenario you need to do 25 fights, at which point, it is a significant difference. It's 1/6 more fights that you need to do. And that alone statistically, plus with the other points that I laid out, where 2 people have much more flexibility in the champions that they have access to, and therefore counter, and also in the paths and nodes that they're able to, let's say, avoid, and always kind of like select the easier ones. I do personally think that Incursions ultimately are easier if you play it with an equally capable partner. So here are the points written out, basically, where more champions, the better choice of paths, and less fights if you're with a partner. All that being said, I'm fully aware that the social factors are important. Like, many people are maybe unable to find a person to play Incursions at the times they are available, or maybe you don't have a friend who's as skilled as you are, or whatever other reasons are. So ultimately, whether, it is statistically or per numbers easier to play in a pair or a single, I don't think it's going to be the final kind of like argument for most of the players. I truly don't. I do think for majority of the players who will go in Incursions, the choice will purely be decided on these social aspects. Whether you have skilled friends, whether you can arrange time, whether all of this other stuff aligns. But at the same time, let's say in a situation like right now where Incursions encourages a push to Zone 25, I feel like I would be doing a disservice to the community if I didn't point out that statistically it will be cheaper for you and easier for you if you do it together with a capable opponent. With a capable friend, of a capable partner, alliance mate, or whatever. So if there's anything you take away from this video, then that is what you should take away. If you want to do a push in Incursions, try and get that Awakening gem and those rank 4 materials. And if you want to be as smart about it as possible, and we're not going into, champion selection strategies or masteries or anything like that, but just from the point of view whether you will have easier time with somebody or by yourself, then the way the Incursions is going to be set up will mean that you should have easier time completing an Incursions push together with somebody who's as capable as you are. Obviously, if you have a very bad partner, it's going to be harder, but all things being equal, yes. If you want to make a push, pick the duo mode. you're gonna have less fights to do, and you will have more options to kind of escape worst opponents or most difficult paths and nodes, and better chances of having decent counters to bosses, which ultimately I do think is going to add up. And it's probably going to be cheaper units-wise. So that's about it. That's what I wanted to discuss. And these are my personal thoughts. Again, it isn't, one size fits all. There are many different people with different experiences and needs and what else not. But logically, thinking through all of this, it does make a lot of sense that Incursions as a game mode is still going to be easier playing together with somebody else. Let me know what you guys think, whether you agree or disagree, and I'm going to catch you guys soon. See ya. Hello there guys, and welcome back to the channel. So we have all the information about the